It was on WLEV, the new gentrified Hamilton Street. They used the word gentrified, and it's anyone that denies that gentrification is going on is blind. It's happening. Maybe if you're not on the street in the neighborhoods talking to the people who have lost their homes, people who have lost their places to shop, people who feel like they don't belong, then maybe you could say that it's not happening. But anyone who is in touch with reality, who is talking with everyday people downtown, will tell you we don't feel included, we don't feel like we belong, we feel like we're being pushed out, and we're going to be pushed out. Gentrification to me is when you strategically and systemically change the culture, the character of a neighborhood. And typically that means replacing working class people with higher income people. And typically that means replacing people of color with Caucasian people. Not all the time, not saying there's not people who have color who have money. Yeah, they, plenty do. But overall, that's typically what happens.
There was, early on, a lot of community conversations around a community benefits agreement type option to figure out, all right, well, if this is coming, how do we make sure it does as much as it possibly can for the surrounding? Because it did become clear that conversations were going on. Well, does the arena go at the waterfront? Does the arena go downtown? Does the arena go over by the baseball stadium? So those conversations, again, I don't know how open to the general public they were, but they were sort of in the air. And as it got decided that the arena would go downtown and sort of spearhead downtown redevelopment, there was community-based conversation around, all right, well, how do we make sure, yes, good thing for Allentown, but how do we make sure that this is going to throw up benefits to the neighborhood?
It was a good idea. I still think it's a good idea, except for it's been executed poorly in some ways.
Basically, that would have been wonderful because it would have set job requirements. It would have set requirements for the developers to actually benefit the community, affordable housing and things like that. What happened with that is, I'll tell you what I was told. I was told that a community benefits agreement would deter development. It would scare the developers away. And I'll tell you who told me that without any fear. Mayor Ed Pawlowski told me that. Yeah, he told me that several times.
the heart of its downtown, the downtown of any city is really its heart, right? And when your heart is failing, when it's ailing, it affects your entire body. It doesn't pump blood into your, your muscles. I mean, it really starts bringing down the entire system. And it's the same thing with a city. If your downtown is ailing, it's going to affect the economic vitality and economy of the entire city. And our heart wasn't only failing; it needed a transplant. I mean, it was dying, if not dead. And so the NIS provided that. It provided that new energy, that new heart, if you will, to get the economics pumping again within the city of Allentown. And it's created a lot. I mean, we've had close to several thousand permanent jobs, 900 construction jobs, and billions of dollars new development with another billion more to come.
Allentown was desperate to be saved from a free fall decline that was causing enormous problems for the people, for the city's own health and vitality, and for the entire region. And this has been probably the most aggressive urban revitalization tool that's been created in the United States. And it was necessary in order to reverse the decline of the city.
As far as if you're living just 2 blocks off in the neighborhood, I don't know how much that community sees the arena as something of theirs, or if it's just another big building in the vicinity, but it's mainly visited by somebody else. That certainly, as it was being built, the conversation was all around getting folks from the suburbs to come and use this facility. That was clearly who it was being built for.
I felt that we were not doing enough to uplift the rest of the neighborhood surrounding the central business district. In my mind, you use public subsidies to intervene in the market to make the market work for those who are typically left behind. So something like this should not, you shouldn't have much of the benefit accruing to just a few lucky people who happen to be the most affluent and the most well-connected. The people who are involved in the development are incredible business people and developers, but that's not enough. We need to make sure that we raise up those who are, and so many of people downtown who are left behind.
In other cases, generally, arenas don't spill over a lot of benefits to their surrounding just sort of naturally. They benefit, their immediate vicinity. That if they do have any spillover effects, there was a study of an arena in Phoenix that found that spillover effects, if anywhere, went to stronger surrounding neighborhoods, but the neighborhoods that had started out as either weaker or poorer, if anything, became worse off after the arena was there.
I've seen these changes for the good. I've seen all these things built up. I've also seen the negative impact where it seems like everything that was there for us, the people who have already lived there, is gone.
Go down Walnut at 6, 7 o'clock at night. What kind of houses are dark? Why are they dark? They're vacant. They're vacant because the landlords have evicted people, or legally by not renewing their lease, because they think the NIS is going to expand. And the NIS is never going to expand ever again. It's never going to grow by even a tenth of an acre. This was a one-time thing.
There's been some conversation about, making sure that there's always affordable housing downtown. And some of that's just making sure that landlords are responsible and, maintaining properties, not overcharging people. I think short term, that's what it really looks like, just making sure that there's decent housing opportunities for everybody. And again, it's hard to look at the data for the region and come to a conclusion that Allentown's not doing its job with affordable housing. There are a lot of other people who are doing nothing. I mean, where is it written that all affordable housing for the Lehigh Valley needs to be in downtown Allentown? That it doesn't.
When you drive downtown, you don't necessarily see them. You don't see the apartment buildings and the homes that were on the 500 block of Walnut Street, and the 600 block, and the 700 block of Walnut Street that were demolished, and the families that lived there. And some of them lived there for quite a long time. It was their home. It wasn't just a building to be demolished. It was where babies were raised and grandparents passed away, and the little inch marks that people put on the wall. All of that stuff existed, and it just was torn down.
So for people who want to protect the status quo, what are you protecting? You're protecting, substandard housing where the kids are being poisoned by lead, where, you can never be sure if there's not some armed drug dealer living next to you. That's not a quality of life, and no poor person should be expected to live there. And so why would we defend that lifestyle and those circumstances? Gentrification would raise the bar. It would raise the viability of the community. It would increase the tax base. Increased tax base would mean you could pay for more cops or pay for better schools, and all of that's an important part of making sure that the rising tide lifts all boats.
When I think gentrification, I think of a neighborhood like mine, which has every hue in the book, every language in the book, homeowner to renter, has a nice character about it. You can sit out on your porch at 2 a.m. and nothing's gonna happen. I think about that block, my block, being torn down and having a completely different demographic there that doesn't reflect the current demographic. And by that, just to be blunt, basically upper income white folk. That's what I see gentrification as. And it doesn't have to be like that. We can have both. We can have upwardly mobile individuals who are from, every race there is, and we can have working class people living in the same neighborhood. It's possible, and in fact, it's what makes a community thrive.
Well, I would point out a couple of things in relation to that. First of all, those expensive new apartments have displaced nobody. Maybe at the most you could count on your fingers the number of people who've been displaced by that.
People will tell you, oh yeah, people aren't being displaced. Okay, I say they are, and I have anecdotal evidence that they are. Where are your numbers? No one's keeping track. So until someone can show me that they've kept track of exactly how many people have been displaced or not been displaced, and until someone can tell me exactly how many people who were hired 4 years ago are still at the arena, still at the restaurants, who's to say I'm wrong and they're right? Get angry about that, okay?
I think there is, but we're trying to attack that simultaneously. I mean, we have a whole program called Upside Allentown that's working on that very issue.
I mean, to me, I think it's wise to do some long-term planning around that question to make sure that it doesn't happen in an unreasonable way. But gentrification, to me, can easily be defined by looking at data, that it happens when income levels in a neighborhood go up and property values and rents go up in a way that it drives people out of the neighborhoods. That hasn't happened here.
Oh yeah, dramatically. And J.B. Riley of the City Center wants to downplay it, but we have seen rents are rising and they're rising at a considerable rate around the area. And around the arena area, which would be the Miz area, which is from Walnut Street to Linden.
And you can see it with downtown. If you walk from Hamilton Street 1 block over to Linden, the world dramatically shifts, which is sort of an illustration of the lack of spillover that those kinds of developments tend to have. And I think the waterfront will likely look similar in that you'll cross Front Street and you'll enter a new world. And so it'll be interesting to see sort of how those borderlines work. That's sort of the mishmash between what neighborhoods need and what politics needs. Politics loves, breaking ground with gold shovels or using big scissors to cut big ribbons. But neighborhoods really need lots of little, not very sexy stuff, but that goes on, but just changes the way people think about the places they live.
The city has to hold up. I don't know, if you talk to City Hall people, I mean, City Hall's got its issues these days, but, the city gets somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million a year of HUD Community Development Block Grant money to address the kind of issues that you're raising a concern about, and let's just say they need to be doing that.
I think the driving piece is the community itself, and having the community engaged and involved, investing, getting those jobs back.
But the people who are talking aren't showing up because that's not within the comfort zone. People who are talking at the 7-Eleven, talking at the Cucci Frito, they're not going into the government center or to City Hall in this strange building with these people in suits and ties to put stickers up and plans that are only in English. They're not doing it. And so there's a whole segment of Allentown that their voice has not been heard, and it's been marginalized.
The municipal board's done an awful job at listening to the community. You can come up and talk, and just look at the board. Watch our videos. We got 2 videos on it. Look at the board members. One's sitting there doodling. You can see it. He's sitting there drawing. Another one's, one looks like he's falling asleep. I know Side Tribe without a shadow of doubt could care less. He wishes he could shut them doors. He has shut down public comment several times, in which I had to call the Pennsylvania Attorney General and then relay it back to them that you are violating the Sunshine Act of Pennsylvania. They were not allowing public comment for 2 months. That's a violation. So the municipal board is not listening to the people. They care less.
People have this almost folksy, negative perspective of gentrification. Let me give you a different perspective. The way I would make the argument is that you can't have a functioning community without a functioning marketplace. And you can't have a functioning marketplace where everybody's poor.
I think there needs to be a really transparent sort of public process that people get to talk about these things, and that all parties get to be ready to handle rental affordability and people getting to stay in neighborhoods as it improves. If that makes any sense. It's tricky. Let me tell you how good we are at having those conversations. City halls, that is not their strong suit.
I think sometimes in Allentown, when you speak out and what you have to say is controversial and doesn't quite fit the mold, you get this label as an agitator. You get this label as you're trying to, stir up problems that don't exist. And to me, they do exist. And if I look on history, the best changes that have occurred in this country have been because someone stood up and they agitated. They stirred the pot a little bit. And this development that we have, I'm not anti-development, none of us are. This development that we have going on downtown, it could change the lives of people in Allentown, but it will not do so organically. There must be policy, there must be legislation, there must be programs in place that create a pipeline between the average person in Allentown and the development downtown. Unless that happens, the change won't affect us. It will affect a small pocket of people. So that's all. Not anti-development. Love development, just not the way it's being done.